Spirit is talking about how does weave work? It is an energetic process of densification, crystallization, release, and a return to the void, which can feel hollow to the personality self. So it can almost feel like you're swimming in too deep of waters during the hollow part of the process. And Spirit says, in fact, the ego can resist or feel paralysis at any level of the weave, at any part of the process of densification, crystallization, release, or return to the void, the hollow, so to speak. Densification can make us feel heavy in weave. And if we give into the archonic, lower vibrational thought arrows that are kind of being slung at us, then we'll begin feeling emotionally and even physically dense, leading to fatigue, inflammation, pain, depression, mental haze, confusion, anxiety, despair, or even paralyzing fear. We are encouraged through all stages of the weave process. And so this is not just happening once, this is happening over and over and over. Every weave that we have, we are moving through densification, crystallization of what we've acquired, an integration of it, a release, and then a return to the void so that we can receive our next weave. And so we're encouraged through all of these stages to get our bare feet on the earth or get our hands in the dirt, as once again, this is the fastest way to connect to the magnetization of the planet and to uplift our energy bodies in alignment with source so that we have the physical ability to keep up with all of this, quote, weave work. During the crystallization process of weave, we can feel focused and clear. We can even feel like we're on a mission to get things done. This is usually one of the more fun parts of the process. And spirits is even a very enjoyable part of the process, unless we are prone to feeling or experiencing mania. So there are people who, when they are in the part of crystallization, can feel like, almost a little frenetically overjoyed or unable to ground themselves. And so each of the parts of these processes have light and shadow that we will be working with, and each of us is made up differently. So we will each experience part of these processes differently. Some people that I talk to love the densification. I have a friend who's like, oh, like densification is my favorite. Like I love the heaviness of it. And other people, are like, man, that is like a slog. Like I really have a hard time getting through that part of the weave. And sometimes we're only in this process for minutes or moments. And sometimes it's days or months or even years, depending on what the weave is that we are moving through personally, how deep a trauma can possibly be if it's, a weave that's carrying a denser vibration with it. And so we as we kind of move through this process, we start to really understand it more deeply, because we're having that personal wisdom. It's not like we're just being left out in the desert. God and spirit, whatever you want to call the nameless, is guiding us through it. So during crystallization, we can feel focused, clear, and on a mission to get things done. We also talked about the shadow of that, feeling manic or in a frenetic type of place. We then move into the release part of weave, which we often experience mentally, emotionally, and physically. So sometimes we experience this as actually crying tears, or we might feel the need to move energy through sweat, or kind of like moving it through anger, like moving it out into the weave in some way. And when in alignment, Spirit said, this feels like the shedding of our old identities and all that is not serving the soul. It is a natural process. And Spirit says, when we're in resistance to this time of release, it can be because we're distracting ourselves through addictive habits or tendencies, and can be in an energy of denial or avoidance. So it can have that wonderful cathartic feeling, or it can be giving us this feeling of, I just am not ready to look at that right now. I'm just going to distract myself. There's something over here I can dig into, and, going to move on with my life. So once again, knowing that this process has a lot of light and shadow to it, and all of us is here to teach us something. And so the last phase of the process of weave is what I would call the hollow. And many enjoy this space. It's the 0 point where all and nothing are existing simultaneously. But it can also be experienced as deep longing or yearning, or even emptiness or helplessness or despair, because we do not necessarily feel that fulfilled feeling. So when we recognize it as a fresh start, as a blank slate, as a starting over within each weave, then we can kind of enjoy it as such. And we no longer feel that more shadow aspect of it that leads to that longing or that feeling like my desire is just always out of my reach. And it's very easy for the personality self to get kind of stuck in these phases. And so that's why Spirit is giving us these tools and these resources to help us understand when we're in it, so that we don't have to be kind of languishing in it forever, that we can recognize that it's a moment in time. And ultimately, it's always leading us closer to source and to our own healing. We choose to experience weave at any level of consciousness, or we can choose it. Spirit says it's our free will to choose any level of consciousness with which to experience weave, including to ignore it completely. But Spirit does encourage us to live at the vibration of weave, so that we are tuned into our greatest joy, peace, passion, and purpose. Spirit also acknowledges that there's a wealth of wisdom which is learned and experienced when we are, quote, stranding ourselves at the lower vibrations of consciousness and experiencing what we would call suffering within the human spirit. So Spirit is once again, saying it doesn't matter if you pay attention to weave or not, because you're going to learn, sometimes the hard way, sometimes the easy way. We always get to choose. It's always bringing us back to source. Weave as a whole, it teaches us to experience life through sensation. And it may not always feel good or pleasant to the personality ego self, but it will always feel and be purposeful.